Bullying is an epidemic in the United States. It occurs in every school and every grade level. It also occurs in the workplace and homes. Insecurities, power trips, and incompetence are the typical reasons for this behavior. I'm your host, Brittany Noble, and bullying is the topic on today's The Open Source TV. Back in a minute to talk to Tina Meier from the Meier Foundation. October 16, 2006. That's the day the effects of bullying became real in the St. Louis region. Just a few weeks shy of her 14th birthday, Meier died by suicide after having been bullied by an adult neighbor posing as a 16-year-old love interest on MySpace. Tina Meier is Meier's mother, and since her daughter's death, she has been in the trenches fighting against bullying. Tina, welcome to the Open Source TV.
Thank you.
Glad to have you with us. May you tell us what happened to Megan? Let's talk about it.
So Megan was this amazing, funny, goofy girl that struggled with depression and attention deficit disorder since the 3rd grade, but she had gone through bullying through elementary school, into middle school, and in 7th grade, it was pretty much of a struggle every day, and we switched schools for her. So she went to this private school. Things were doing really well, but then Megan wanted to get on MySpace, which is today's TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram. She wanted to be like every other kid. And so I had many rules in place. I allowed her to have that. And she was befriended by a boy by the name of Josh. And, you know, I was the paranoid mom of like, who is this? Do you know? Be careful. Don't put any information out there of what school you go to or where you live. Megan, you don't know these people. And she was always like with the hand, Mom, you don't get it. Like, I've got it. I know what I'm doing. And so they talked. And things went well for about 6 weeks. Megan was doing phenomenal in 8th grade on the volleyball team, spending the night at friends' houses. And I saw this girl that had struggled for so long, like, be happy and excited. And she was looking at herself differently. Like, she wasn't this girl that was fat or this or that, all the labels that she felt all those years. And so as a mom, I was finally relieved, like, she's happy. And it was one night, October 15th, 2006, Megan received a negative message from Josh. She was kind of confused by it. It happened again, and she said, what are you talking about? And we shut it down that night. I said, listen, Megan, it's late. You know, maybe he had a bad day, right? Just find out tomorrow. And back then, it was dial-up, right? So nothing was on our phone. You couldn't access it through the night. The next day, I took Megan to school. She was happy, handed out all of her birthday invitations. She was excited. And I picked her up from school, and she ran out, and she's like, Mom, everybody's coming to my party. It's going to be amazing. And we got home. The moment we got home, though, she instantly now wanted to sign on to MySpace. Did Josh respond? Like, what is going on? And I signed her on because I only had the password. And she got a message from Josh that said, you know, you heard me. You're not a nice person. No one likes you. No one wants to be friends with you. And Megan was like, I am nice. You know, I'm not mean to people unless they're mean to me. You know, where'd you get this from? Who's telling you this? And they started going back and forth. And I said, Megan, listen, you've got to sign off. I've got to get your sister off the bus. It was pouring down rain, and I'd had to take her to the orthodontist. And Megan said, okay, Mom, I will. Well, I heard the bus, and I yelled, Megan, she's here. Get off the computer. And she said, Mom, please let me finish this last message, and I will. Typically, I never did that. I always made sure Megan logged out because I knew my kid. She would be like, yeah, I logged out, and then 10 minutes later, she'd be down there on it. So I was in a rush. I left, took my other daughter, and I called her to check on her, and she was crying. I said, Megan, what is going on? And she said, Mom, they're being horrible. I said, who? And she said, on MySpace. I said, Megan, get off MySpace. I will be home. And about another half an hour later, I was checking out, and I called her on my way to the car and said, you know, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? And she was sobbing to the point I couldn't even hardly understand her. And I said, Megan, are you still on MySpace? And she said, yes. I said, Megan, get off MySpace. I will be home. And at this point as a parent, I was tired. I was frustrated. You know, we had been running all day, and Allison was crying because her teeth hurt from her braces being tightened. I get home, I knew there was still dinner, there was homework, there was all of the things we have. So I went straight to the computer with Megan, and she was crying. I said, Megan, get up. Let me see what's going on. I told you to sign off. And I started looking at the messages that went from Megan to Josh, Josh to Megan, and now 2 other girls got involved. The things that went back and forth were, back then, it was a little bit different because they would call you out by your name. They really didn't care back then. So it was Megan Meier's a fat ass, Megan Meier's a whore. Those were about the nicest things.
Wow.
But then I also saw Megan now trying to defend herself. So Megan was saying, I am not this, you're this. So I told her, I said, listen, Megan, you know better. Like, these war of words going back and forth, I've told you will never work. If you would have signed off when I told you to, it would have turned out differently. We could have handled it differently. And I said, you're not any of these things that they're saying about you. And she said, Mom, it's going to everybody at my old school, everybody at my new school. No one's going to believe me. And I said, Meg, come on, I've told you, you're not any of these things. And she said, you're supposed to be my mom. You're supposed to be on my side. And she took off running upstairs to her room. She stopped at the top of the stairs. Her dad was coming downstairs and he was asking her, why are you crying? What's going on? And I think she just kind of said she was upset and went in her room. Megan was the type of kid that you could not, like, instantly when she was upset, I could not go in and talk to her. She would, like, lock down.
Okay.
And so I always have to give her a little bit of space. And then for her to take a deep breath, then I could go in and talk to her. Well, and sometimes it could take days with Megan. It depended on how she was. But I was in the kitchen talking to her dad, and he was, he didn't like the fact she had a MySpace, or she took camera, pictures on her digital camera. And I was trying to explain to him what was going on, and probably 20 minutes in, I just had this feeling that completely wiped through my whole body. Wow. And it was just a feeling of like something was wrong. And I took off running upstairs to the room, opened the door, and found Megan hanging in her closet. I screamed to him. He came upstairs. We called 911. He did get Megan down and started CPR. The paramedics arrived, and they did get her heart started and to breathe again, but she was in a coma. The weather was so bad that they could not airlift her to Children's Hospital, so we had to have a transport team take her to Children's. We were at Children's for about 24 hours, and finally we decided, everything was really shutting down. We weren't going to put her on life support. I couldn't do that to her. And Megan passed away on October 17th of 2006. She was just this beautiful, amazing girl. And she was supposed to get her braces off that day, but they sometimes, she just, I don't think, realized how much the things that these people were saying, I don't think she realized that it was fake, and a fake account for sure. I think Megan went through, we always say that there's signs when you know somebody dies by suicide, but the reality is I had no clue. If I would have thought Megan was upset or thinking about taking her own life, I would have been next to her. I would not have left her side. But I think Megan felt that she had gone through all of this stuff for all these years, was finally doing well, and now with everything on social media, it blasted to her old school, new school. And unfortunately, Megan made a permanent decision that could have been temporary, that we could have worked through, that we could have made sure and helped her with it. When she passed away, there was no note, there was nothing. It was probably about 5 to 6 weeks after Megan passed away. The Josh Evans account, this boy that she had talked to, his account was gone, deleted. Actually, the night Megan took her own life, it started getting deleted. We were called to a meeting, and this meeting was at a counselor's office. A neighbor in our subdivision really said, I called and said, I need you and your family to come to this meeting. It's extremely important about Megan's death. And I'm like, listen, it is like Thanksgiving weekend. I'm going to a support group for parents who've lost their kid to suicide. I'm barely functioning. Like, I don't really know what you want to talk to me about, but I really don't want to hear what you have to say. And I kind of hung the phone up because I'm like, listen, I'm holding on by a string. And they called back again, and then we had another person in the subdivision that we knew call and say, please, you have to go to this meeting. So at the meeting, it was the neighbor down the street, it was a couple of counselors, and it was my husband at the time and I. And we were informed that that Josh Evans account was really fake. That the Josh Evans account was really our neighbor Lori Drew, was a 47-year-old mom. It was her daughter Sarah, who had been friends with Megan since the 4th grade, and another 18-year-old girl that was kind of a family friend that worked out of the house. Those three, our neighbor 4 houses down the street, were really Josh Evans the entire time. And these were the same people that came to Megan's funeral, the same people that asked us to store Christmas stuff for their kids in our garage, the same people that invited us to their daughter's 14th birthday party 3 days after Megan's, the same people that, took my daughter out for Halloween. They're same people that relished in the fact of watching us grieve and be in pain, knowing that they were the ones behind this account. Yeah, those people.
Mom, you are so strong, and I thank you for sharing this story. We'll be back. You're watching the Open Source TV.
We watched our friend be afraid and be fierce and be brave and have to do things and confront his government in these agencies and call out lies. It's not something he ever thought he'd have to do in his life. And for me, knowing that he passed away suddenly, I feel like this robbed him of more than just his life. It robbed him of peace.
Welcome back. We have Tina Meier here. She's with the Meier Foundation. She's been sharing her story of her daughter who died by suicide. Tina, if you don't mind, can you tell me more about the woman that was pretending to be Josh and whatever happened to her?
So Lori Drew, when all of this came about, we did get a hold of the FBI, and the FBI did investigate her. And unfortunately, there were no laws in place, no laws in the state of Missouri. They took it up to Washington and said there are no laws for what happened, her pretending to be somebody else online. So we got the laws changed in the state of Missouri, which is wonderful. It was Senate Bill 818. And then now we know that all states have cyberbullying laws, anti-cyberbullying laws, which is wonderful. Then it was kind of like, well, now what? It was kind of like, okay, the laws were changed, but still this woman, there is no justice, right? And my justice was I didn't want another kid or family going through this. So we actually were contacted by a news reporter, Steve Pokin, who was a local journalist, and he was going to do a story. And he did the story on Megan's story, and it was, my whole purpose was really to get these laws changed, right? The story went out in the local journal, and it all of a sudden went viral. And a blogger from another state got a hold of it, started pushing it out, and then it was local media, it was national media, all over the place. And the crazy thing is back then, when we started getting national calls, I did contact one, and I won't say stations, but one station was going to come out. The other 2 big stations, my aunt contacted and said, do you want to do a story on this? And they said, we don't do teen suicides. We don't do talk about that. And how things have changed, right? Through that, it was really then getting that word out. And for me, it was a little bit of vindication, because it was kind of like, her name is out there now, right? And people know that this is real, that I am not, as a mom, trying to make an excuse for why my daughter died by suicide. When tragedy happens, we always want to find, point that place of, why? Who's at fault? So we can take that anger and push it there. And so I think so often it was kind of like, did this really happen? And when the story got out there, it really happened. There were many things that happened to Lori Drew and her family from society, not me. It was all the things that I wished I could have done, but I couldn't do. It was they got her business shut down because people from all over the world called her businesses and got it shut down. The husband lost one of his jobs. They had to change their phone numbers. They had to put security cameras up. It was, and for me, I know some people are going to think, oh, you're horrible. For me, it was kind of like you live in that spotlight now, right? You worry about when you come and you go, you worry about your kids because what you did, you don't show any remorse. You do not care about what you did. You don't want to make the world a better place. You just want to feel victimized because now you have to change your lifestyle, which is what they did. When I thought nothing else was going to be done, we received a call from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, Thomas O'Brien. And he said that, listen, I just want to let you know, and actually Good Morning America was at my house at the time and they filmed it and I got this call. I just want to let you know the federal grand jury indicted Lori Drew on 4 charges.
Wow.
I'm like, what? When did this happen? Because they don't tell you. And it was actually the neighbor who set up that meeting and found out about it that was so upset. Her and her daughter flew to Los Angeles and testified before the federal grand jury. So Lori Drew is facing 4 counts. It was really violating the terms of service and hacking and different things. And it was the United States versus Lori Drew. So it was really a suit against MySpace that she violated MySpace. And she faced 20 years in prison. And I thought, good, finally, maybe something will happen. I want her to go to jail for all 20 years, right? So we did go through the trial. I learned quite a bit about the justice system, the good and the bad. And ultimately, out of it all, the judge at any time, because this was a case that the ACLU was not happy about, a lot of people wrote a lot of briefs to be able to try to shut this case down because it was one of a kind. Because of freedom of speech, your First Amendment right, saying how can you charge Lori Drew or have her charged when it was just her First Amendment right, freedom of speech. And but the trial went through. The jury ended up finding her guilty on 3 counts but misdemeanors, deadlocked on the 4th. We went to a hearing for sentencing several times. Finally, in July of 2009, Judge Wu threw the case out and said, listen, too many people lie on social media accounts. Pretty much it would be unconstitutional to convict Lori Drew. So she wasn't charged. She didn't face jail time. And they did not do an appeal. But, I was upset, but I knew in my heart there was not going to be anything really coming from that. But the big thing that came from it is the awareness. Now the discussions. Now people understanding that this is an issue, that we have to start changing policies and laws in our states, policies in our schools. Parents have to talk to their kids. Schools have to understand, and police officers have to be trained to understand when they get calls and reports about these situations. And so for me, I don't regret an ounce of doing that because it did push that conversation forward, and it still continues today. I chose not to move forward with any type of civil suits because I was done with her. I was done. I didn't want to waste another hour or energy on trying to find vengeance or justice for her because at that point it really wasn't about her anymore. Like, I was done with her. It was really about Megan's life and all of these other kids and families that we can help. That's where it's at. And that's why I cut it, cold, done. And I focused 1,000% on this foundation to make a difference. That's where my passion and energy goes.
And what is the foundation's mission?
So our mission is to support and inspire actions to end bullying, cyberbullying, and suicide. Yeah.
Are you proud of the foundation's growth and success?
Yeah, I am. There's days that I sit back this many years later that I'm like, Tina, you are so far behind. You need to do, you need to do this and you need to reach these kids and you can, we can get this grant to be able to help do that. And there's so many days that I'm like, I've got so much more growth to do because there's so many kids struggling. And then if I sit back and I really look at, okay, all of the places that we've gone and the kids, yes, I am so proud and I can remember, I mean, the amazing thing is that the families that we've worked with through the years and the kids that we've worked with, there's still so many of them that text me or
Wow.
we stay in contact with, or a little tiny school in Indiana that the boy was really struggling in 8th grade and he connected with me and he still reaches out to me.
You're
You know,
saving
he's like
lives.
22 years old now, but those are the things that give me the goosebumps of like, okay, this is why we do it, right? Because these kids struggled so much, they just needed to be believed in and needed that support. And if we can offer that and help, then yeah. So I'm beyond proud. But it's not just me. It's the other staff that works here, and it's the the counselors that work for us that go into the field and work with these kids, and it's the volunteers. So there's so many more people beyond me. But yeah, I'm extremely proud.
All right. Well, I am proud as well. We will continue this conversation after the commercial break. See you then.
My guest today is Jordan Braxton. For more than 3 decades, she's been an activist here in St. Louis for the gay community. As an HIV/STI prevention specialist at Vivint Health, she spends a lot of her time teaching others about the need for equality.
Welcome back. We're talking about bullying today and what we can do to help our kids and our parents. Parents are reaching out to you for help, right? They're in need.
Yeah. We get a majority of parents that reach out to us, and typically it's after a situation has gotten pretty bad. You think of the beginning of the school year and the kid goes to school and maybe they are made fun of because of their clothes. It could be maybe they're made fun of because of the income level of their family. It could be because of their skin color. It could be because of their religion. It could be because of their height. I mean, there's a million things that happen, right? And the kid may brush it off. And then it happens again, and the kid may tell a parent, and the parent may say, like I did, just ignore them.
Okay.
You're better than that. Don't worry about them. And then they try to ignore it, and then it continues to escalate. And then now it's not done so big and broad, it's the little tiny things that happen, right? So when they would talk about Megan's legs or her weight, which she was so upset about, worried about, they would just in gym run by and just take their leg and shake it. No adult's going to see that. No gym teacher is going to be able to see that. And even if they do see that, can they really prove that that kid's intent was to hurt Megan? Right? So the problem is that when these situations happen, they start getting more subtle because kids don't want to get caught. And then the kid kind of gets to the point where they've tried different things, coping skills. They've tried ignoring it. They've tried lashing back out at them. They've tried telling an adult. And they get kind of to the point where now they don't want to go to school. They are isolating themselves. Their grades may be dropping. Parents start seeing this spiraling. And now parents find out because the kids finally expose all of, I've been going through this, this, and this, and this. I can't take it anymore. And the parents flip out because now they go to the school. Do you know this has been going on for 6 months? You need to do something about it. I'm sick and tired of it. My kid's struggling. And they want it fixed because you're a parent. You're scared. And the schools can only deal with or address with what has happened right now. And they can't tell you what they did or did not do to the other student because there's FERPA laws, privacy, right? So it's this really hard place where parents feel stuck. So what we do is try to listen to the parents, validate how the parents are feeling, scared, frustrated, mad, and then we provide them some steps. So, okay, how have you approached the school? What do you want to do? Okay. Do you want your child to stay in school? If so, here's some steps. So we'll give them some steps on keeping documentation, how to be able to work and approach the school. We talk to them about maybe some mental health supports for their child, and we'll look for those and make sure that they're helping. And we try to connect them in any way that we can to help them through that process. And most of the time, for parents, it's just they want somebody to listen to them. Okay. And take a deep breath and not say, why didn't you do this? You should have done this. You should have grounded them. You should do this, where parents just kind of panic. And so we really try to help them come up with a way to one, listen to their kids, not threaten or, not talk about everything in front of them every day the second they come into the door. Like, how was school? Did they pick on you? Did they make fun of you? Because that anxiety level for those kids is constant.
Okay.
So go scream in a car as a parent. Go call Aunt Nancy down the street. Don't do it in front of the kid.
Okay.
And try to give them some space and get them connected to some help. Check with your pediatrician, primary care doctor, and then we give some steps to work with the school. And so we try that approach. And if things are really escalating, then there may be other things that parents may need to do. They may need to do some other schooling, or they may need to, sometimes it depends on how bad it's gotten. If it's been physical, they may have to look into more legal actions to be able to make sure that child is safe. So it is a rough place, and parents just want their kids to be okay. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
I am overwhelmed by your story, and I'm so thankful that you shared it, because I know that there's so many people that needed to hear this. If
Right.
there's a parent out there, if there's a student that is touched by what we've talked about today, is there a way that they can reach out to you?
Sure. I mean, one, I want parents to know it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be scared, but reach out and get help. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent if you need help. It just means sometimes we need that help. And for kids to know that there is help, that there are people who do care about you, that suicide is not the answer, that once you get through that help, life can be better. And so making sure that they know there's resources. So they can call us, 636-757-3501. They can go to our website 24 hours a day. It's meganmeierfoundation.org. And there's tons of resources on there. And so we just want to be able to help and provide. If we don't have the answers, then we will then try to find those answers for them, try to give them those resources.
All right, Ms. Meier, thank you so much for the work that you're doing
welcome.
in the community. We
Thank
certainly appreciate it. We're not done. Stay with us. We'll be right back. No doubt bullying is a problem. Thoughts and prayers are inadequate after a tragedy. It is way past time to look at the cause and effect of constant psychological abuse. Today I talked with Tina Meier, mainly about bullying in schools, but bullying is a constant in the workplace and at home. So this is what I say to adults. Maybe if you'd stop bullying each other, the kids wouldn't learn this bad behavior. I'm your host, Brittany Noble, and this is the Open Source TV. We'll see you again soon.